I watched my coworker take credit for my work and get promoted. When the system crashed, he couldn't even read my code. I, 28M, have been working at a tech company for the past 4 years as a software developer, and I never thought I'd be sharing a story like this. I've always been the quiet one in the office, the guy who brings his lunch, works through breaks, and genuinely loves diving deep into code. That all changed 6 months ago when I discovered my coworker had stolen my project and used it to get promoted to team lead, a position I had been methodically working towards for 2 years. Let me start from the beginning. Our company isn't one of those flashy Silicon Valley startups. We're a mid-sized tech firm that specializes in business automation solutions. I joined right after getting my CS degree, starting in the junior developer pool before working my way up to a regular developer position. My performance reviews were always stellar, with my supervisors particularly praising my attention to detail and ability to handle complex systems. Everything was going smoothly until last year when our company landed its biggest client yet, a Fortune 500 company that needed a custom automation system to handle their entire supply chain management. The contract was worth millions, and everyone knew this could be a game changer for our company. My supervisor called me into his office on a Wednesday morning and told me I would be leading the project. I still remember the excitement I felt. This was my chance to prove myself worthy of that team lead position. That's when my coworker entered the picture. He had joined the company about a year after me, and while I was coding, he was mastering the art of corporate networking. You know the type? Always hanging around senior management, organizing office happy hours, and somehow taking 2-hour lunches without anyone batting an eye. My supervisor assigned him as support on the project, saying his people skills would complement my technical expertise. From day one, something felt off about his involvement. He would constantly hover around my desk, asking for detailed updates and requesting access to all my documentation, claiming he needed to stay in the loop for client communications. At first, I appreciated his interest. I even spent hours walking him through my design decisions and explaining the complex algorithms I was developing. The project itself was fascinating. I was building a system that could reduce our clients' processing time by 75% through a combination of machine learning and custom automation protocols. Every night, I would lose track of time, perfecting the architecture, running tests, and documenting everything meticulously. My coworker would occasionally submit minor bug fixes or UI tweaks, but I was handling the core development myself. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. He started scheduling regular update meetings with senior management without including me, claiming they were just informal check-ins. He would ask for copies of my documentation to proofread, and sometimes I'd notice him taking screenshots during our code review sessions. But I was so absorbed in the technical challenges that I ignored the office politics playing out right in front of me. 3 months into development, just as I was implementing the final major features, I caught a nasty flu. Not the kind you can power through with Dayquil. We're talking high fever, can't leave your bed sick. I had to take a week off, the first time I'd taken sick leave in 2 years. I emailed my supervisor and my coworker, attaching detailed notes about the remaining tasks and offering to join any urgent meetings virtually. When I returned to the office the following Monday, something had changed. People were looking at me differently, some with pity, others just avoiding eye contact altogether. It wasn't until I reached my desk that my friend from the QA team pulled me aside and told me what had happened. During my sick leave, my coworker had called an all-hands meeting with upper management. He presented the entire project as his brainchild, positioning himself as the primary architect and developer while relegating my role to that of a junior assistant who helped with basic coding. He had copied all my documentation, changed the authorship details, and even presented my architectural diagrams as his own. The worst part? He had timed it perfectly, knowing I was too sick to even check my emails, let alone defend myself. The presentation was a massive success. Management was impressed by the system's sophistication and his apparent technical prowess. Within days, he was promoted to team lead, complete with a significant raise and a hefty project completion bonus. When I tried to speak up, my supervisor brushed off my concerns with corporate platitudes about being a team player and how success is a collaborative effort. I later learned that he had been thoroughly convinced by my co-worker's version of events through weeks of careful groundwork. I was devastated. For years of hard work, countless late nights, and genuine passion for my craft, all hijacked by someone who could barely explain how the system worked. I considered quitting, updating my LinkedIn, and starting fresh somewhere else. But something made me stay. Maybe it was stubbornness, or maybe I just knew that someone who didn't understand the system would eventually trip up. I spent the next 3 months watching him flounder in his new role as team lead. He would assign tasks that made no technical sense, approve changes that violated our core architecture, and spend most of his time in meetings rather than addressing critical issues. I documented everything but kept quiet, knowing that in software development, technical debt always comes due. The reckoning arrived sooner than even I expected. One Thursday afternoon, our CEO scheduled an emergency all-hands meeting. The client had discovered a critical flaw in the system, one that could potentially cost them millions in lost inventory and shipping delays. They needed it fixed immediately, and naturally, all eyes turned to the genius who had supposedly built the system. I watched from my desk as my coworker unraveled. He spent 2 days in panic mode, proposing quick fixes that would have only made the problem worse. In team meetings, he couldn't answer basic questions about the system's architecture. His confident demeanor cracked as the client grew increasingly frustrated and our company's reputation hung in the balance. That's when I received an email directly from our CEO. The message was brief. I understand you assisted with the original development. Can you take a look at this issue? This was my moment, but I knew I had to handle it carefully. I couldn't just accuse my coworker of theft. I needed to let the truth speak for itself. I replied with a comprehensive email, attaching my original project logs, Git commits, and timestamps of all development work. I explained how I could fix the issue within hours because I had actually built the system and understood its intricacies. I included early design documents from my personal development journal, dated months before the project even started, showing how I had been researching similar solutions long before we landed the client. The evidence was overwhelming. My Git commits showed I had written over 90% of the code. The documentation timestamps proved I had created everything before my sick leave. The system's architecture matched my early design drafts perfectly. Even the variable naming conventions and code comments matched my style from previous projects. The CEO's response was immediate. He called an emergency meeting with the board and our department heads. My coworker tried to maintain his story about collaborative effort, but fell apart when asked to explain specific technical decisions in the code. His knowledge gaps were glaring. He couldn't even explain the core algorithms he had supposedly designed. The fallout was swift and comprehensive. My coworker was immediately demoted and transferred to another department. I was promoted to senior developer with a substantial raise, a position created specifically to recognize technical excellence rather than management potential. Both the CEO and my supervisor issued personal apologies, with my supervisor admitting he should have scrutinized the situation more carefully. But the real validation came from the client. After I fixed their issue, it took about 4 hours once I had authorization to access the production system. They specifically requested that I handle all future developments. Their CTO even wrote a letter to our CEO, praising my quick resolution and expressing their trust in my capabilities. They've since signed 2 additional contracts with our company, specifically requiring my involvement in both projects. The incident led to major changes in our company's project management policies. All code contributions now require signed documentation, and project leads must demonstrate technical proficiency before presenting to clients. My supervisor was transferred to a different department, replaced by someone with a stronger technical background who actually reviews code instead of just PowerPoint presentations. Looking back, I sometimes wonder if I should have spoken up sooner. Maybe I should have been more assertive about claiming credit for my work from the beginning. But watching my coworkers' carefully constructed facade crumble while I professionally and calmly presented the truth felt like the perfect revenge. I didn't have to scheme or plot. I just had to wait for him to face a technical challenge he couldn't bluff his way through. The experience taught me several valuable lessons about corporate life. While office politics and networking skills can sometimes propel the wrong people upward, technical excellence and thorough documentation always speak louder in the long run. I still keep my head down and focus on my work, but now I make sure to maintain clear records of my contributions and speak up about my role in projects. The most surprising outcome? My quiet competence has earned me more respect than any amount of corporate networking could have. Junior developers now come to me for mentoring, and senior management actually listens when I raise concerns about technical decisions. I've even been asked to help develop guidelines for our company's new project attribution and documentation requirements. I still see my former coworker occasionally. It's hard not to in a mid-sized company. He keeps his distance, and the awkward silence when we pass in the hallway says more than any confrontation could. I heard through the grapevine that he's struggling in his new role, where he actually has to produce work rather than just take credit for others' efforts. As for me, I'm still at my desk, still solving problems, still bringing my lunch, and working through breaks. But now I do it with the confidence of someone who knows their worth and understands that in technology, the truth always surfaces in the code. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the awards and supportive comments. You all have shared some amazing similar stories in the comments, and it's both comforting and disturbing to know how common this type of situation is in tech. Edit 2. To address some common questions. Yes, I still work at the same company, and things have actually improved significantly since this incident. The new policies about project attribution and documentation requirements have made it much harder for anyone to take credit for others' work. And no, legal action wasn't necessary. The company handled everything internally in a way that satisfied all parties. Edit 3. For those asking about my coworker, he's still with the company, but in a different department. We rarely interact, which is probably best for everyone involved. And no, he never apologized, but his silence whenever we pass in the hallway says enough. Some of you suggested I should report him to HR for creating a hostile work environment, but honestly, I'm happy with how things turned out. Success is the best revenge.